The Crimson Nebula lived up to its name, casting a blood-red glow across the bridge of the ZES Pathfinder. Captain Ixel's inner eyelids flickered rapidly, a nervous tick she'd never quite managed to suppress during her decade of exploratory service. Something about this section of space felt wrong, like a predator's shadow passing overhead. "Sensor anomaly at bearing 347 Mark II," announced First Officer Kex, his crystalline appendages clicking against the holographic interface. "Energy signature unlike anything in our database." Ixel leaned forward in her command chair, scales shifting from their usual calm blue to an alert amber. "Show me." The main view screen flickered to life, displaying a sea of crimson cosmic dust that stretched into infinity. But there, barely visible through the stellar haze, something massive was moving. The Pathfinder's advanced sensors painted a ghostly outline across the screen, attempting to define edges that seemed to defy conventional geometry. "Size comparison," Ixel demanded, her voice steady despite the growing unease in her gut. Kex's crystals pulsed with pale light as he processed the data. "Initial readings suggest." "Captain, this can't be right." He paused, running the calculations again. "The object is approximately 4 kilometers in length. That's larger than any known Coalition capital ship." The bridge fell silent. Even the youngest crew member knew what that meant. Only one civilization had ever built ships of that scale, and they had vanished from the galactic stage 3 centuries ago. "Take us closer," Ixel ordered. "But maintain combat readiness. History tells us enough about human engineering to warrant caution." The Pathfinder glided through the nebula's crimson veils, its sensors reaching out to paint an increasingly detailed picture of the mysterious vessel. As they drew closer, details emerged that made Ixel's scales ripple with ancient racial memory. The hull was smooth but faceted, like a diamond cut by giants. Geometric patterns that seemed random at first resolved into what their xenorchaeologists had identified as human stealth geometry, designed to scatter both energy and kinetic weapons. "Captain," called out their sensor officer, "we're detecting active power signatures. Minimal, but present. And there's more." The young Zenturi's voice trembled. "The ship's quantum wake analysis suggests temporal discontinuity. Whatever this vessel is, it might not have experienced the full passage of time since the war." Ixel rose from her chair, moving to stand before the main viewport. As if the nebula itself was parting to grant them audience, the cosmic dust thinned, revealing their quarry in full visible light for the first time. The ship was magnificent and terrible, its dark hull drinking in the nebula's crimson glow. And there, picked out in letters that even 3 centuries couldn't erase, was a name that sent shivers through every member of the crew. AMSHYPURION. "By the first light," Kex whispered, his crystalline form dimming in shock. "Captain, this is impossible. The Hyperion was lost during the Battle of Sol. Every child learns about its last stand, how it held the line against an entire Coalition battle fleet before vanishing into legend. Prepare a priority quantum burst to Coalition Command," Ixel ordered, her scales now shifting between amber and white with competing emotions of fear and scientific curiosity. "And begin passive scanning of every frequency. If this truly is the Hyperion, we need to know if—" She never finished her sentence. Across the massive vessel's hull, lines of light began to pulse, like neural pathways awakening in a sleeping giant. The Pathfinder's sensors screamed with sudden data overload as energy signatures blossomed throughout the legendary ship. "Multiple systems activating," Kex reported, his crystals flashing with alarm. "The ship is, Captain, I think it's waking up." Ixel stared at the viewport, watching as humanity's lost supercarrier stirred from its centuries-long slumber. In that moment, she knew that the galaxy would never be the same again. High Chancellor Vextri stood at the center of the Coalition Grand Assembly, his ceremonial robes catching the light from 1,000 worlds' holographic representatives. The chamber, usually a model of decorum, had descended into chaos within moments of the Pathfinder's quantum burst transmission reaching Coalition space. "Order." Vextree's voice cut through the cacophony, his species' natural harmonic overtones bringing a moment of quiet. We will address this situation with the dignity befitting the Coalition's leadership. The Crack's ambassador, General Mordath, rose from his seat, his cybernetic eye glowing an angry red. Dignity. A human supercarrier has appeared in our territory, and you speak of dignity. The Hyperion was a planet killer, Chancellor. My people lost 3 colony worlds to its weapons during the final years of the war. The war ended 3 centuries ago, countered Ambassador Lyanna of the Stellar Republic, her bioluminescent patterns expressing skepticism. What matters now is understanding how this vessel survived, and more importantly, why it has chosen this moment to return. The assembly chamber's central hologram shifted, displaying the Pathfinder's sensor data. The Hyperion hung in the crimson void like a dark promise, its hull now alive with running lights and energy signatures that defied modern analysis. Our preliminary scans are concerning, announced Dr. Zenaval, the Coalition's leading archaeotech specialist. The elderly Centaurian's tentacles writhed with excitement as she manipulated the holographic display. The Hyperion's quantum core isn't just active. It's operating at specifications that exceed our most advanced modern designs. This ship hasn't been dormant for 3 centuries. It's been waiting. New murmurs of alarm rippled through the assembly. Chancellor Vextrey raised a hand for silence. Dr. Val, please explain the implications. Consider this, she began, zooming the hologram to focus on the ship's engineering section. Modern quantum cores generate a distinctive decay pattern in subspace. The Hyperion's core shows no such degradation. Either humanity possessed technology far beyond what we believed possible during the war, or, she paused, her tentacles coiling tightly, or this vessel has somehow escaped the normal flow of time. The Crack's general's cybernetic implants flashed with agitation. All the more reason to destroy it immediately. We've contained humanity's remnants on their reserve worlds for 3 centuries precisely because their technology was too dangerous to allow its free development. And yet, Ambassador Lyanna interjected, they chose surrender over mutual annihilation. The historical records are clear. Humanity's fleet was still operational when they laid down arms. The question we should be asking is, what could make a civilization choose voluntary technological regression? Before anyone could respond, the chamber's security systems flashed red. A junior analyst rushed to Dr. Val's side, passing her a data crystal with trembling hands. The archaeotech specialist's expression shifted from curiosity to shock as she processed its contents. Chancellor, she announced, her voice quavering, we're detecting quantum transmissions from the Hyperion. They're accepting our modern protocols. The ship is attempting to establish communication. The assembly erupted again, but Chancellor Vextrey's attention was drawn to a small notification on his private display. The message was brief, but carried the highest security clearance he'd seen in his tenure. Analysis of temporal wake patterns confirms anomaly. The Hyperion's chronological signature indicates subjective time passage of less than 1 standard year. For this crew, the war ended yesterday. Exercise extreme diplomatic caution. History suggests they may still possess capabilities we cannot counter. Vextrey looked up at the assembled representatives of 1,000 worlds, each carrying their own memories and prejudices from humanity's last active role in galactic affairs. The Hyperion's return wasn't just a historical curiosity or a military threat. It was a mirror showing them how little they'd truly progressed since the war's end. Open a channel, he ordered, his voice steady despite his inner turmoil. Let us see what 3 centuries of silence have brought us. Admiral Sarah Chen's consciousness returned in waves, each bringing with it a different sensation. First came the soft hum of the Hyperion's quantum core, as familiar to her as her own heartbeat. Then the crisp recycled air of the cryo chamber, carrying the faint ozone scent of active electronics. Finally, the gentle pressure of the neural interface at the base of her skull, connecting her to the ship's vast artificial consciousness. Status report, she managed, her voice rough from disuse. The ship's AI responded instantly, its presence in her mind as clear as the day they'd initiated the temporal stasis protocol. Alert Condition Alpha. Admiral. Stasis interruption triggered by proximity of unknown vessels. 312 years have passed since initiation of Protocol Omega. Chen's eyes snapped open. 300. Confirm that number. Confirmed. However, ship's chronometers indicate only 7 months of subjective time passage within our temporal bubble. The protocol worked exactly as designed. She pushed herself up from the cryopod, muscle memory taking over as she adjusted her uniform. Around her, other pods were cycling active, their occupants beginning to stir. Through the neural link, she felt each crew member's consciousness rejoin the ship's network, their collective awareness expanding like ripples in a pond. "Show me the current situation," she ordered, moving to the command center embedded within the cryo facility. Holographic displays sprang to life, showing her a crimson nebula she didn't recognize and a collection of coalition vessels, maintaining a cautious distance. Commander James Rodriguez, her XO, stepped up beside her, already fully alert thanks to his enhanced neural links. "Ma'am, they're attempting to communicate using protocols that didn't exist when we initiated stasis. The AI has already adapted our systems to compensate." "Of course it has," Chen replied, allowing herself a small smile. The Hyperion's quantum AI had been humanity's crowning achievement, not because of its raw processing power, but because of its ability to understand context and intention across any technological gap. Through the neural interface, she felt the rest of her bridge crew taking their stations throughout the ship. 300 years might have passed outside, but here, within the Hyperion's halls, her crew moved with the precision earned through countless hours of drills and combat operations. "Admiral," called Lieutenant Park from her communication station, "you need to see this historical overview the Coalition is transmitting." "It's not what we expected." Chen absorbed the data through her neural link, her expression remaining neutral even as the full weight of 3 centuries of history crashed over her. The war had ended not with the mutual destruction they'd feared, but with an armistice. Humanity had survived, though their technology had been heavily restricted. And the terrible weapon they'd discovered, the one that had forced them to remove the Hyperion from the equation. "Ma'am," Rodriguez said quietly, "should we respond to their hails?" Chen straightened her uniform jacket, a gesture unchanged by centuries. "Put me on. Ship-wide first." The AI acknowledged with a subtle chime in her mind. Chen took a deep breath, knowing her next words would be heard by every member of her crew, all of them just now grappling with the reality of their temporal displacement. "This is Admiral Chen. By now you're all aware that our temporal stasis protocol was successful, perhaps too successful. We've awakened to find ourselves in a galaxy that's had 3 centuries to forget why we made our choice." She paused, letting that sink in. "But we haven't forgotten. Every one of you volunteered for this mission, knowing it might be one way. You chose to protect not just humanity, but every sentient species from a power that no one was ready to control responsibly. Now we've been awakened, which means something has changed. Stand ready at your posts. The real test of our mission is about to begin." She nodded to Rodriguez. "Open a channel to the Coalition fleet. Let's see how 3 centuries have treated our old adversaries." Dr. Zena Val had spent her entire career studying human artifacts, but nothing had prepared her for the reality of standing inside the Hyperion's engineering bay. Her tentacles wavered in the air, sampling vibrations that shouldn't exist in normal spacetime. Beside her, a junior researcher was practically bouncing with excitement as he recorded readings that would rewrite physics textbooks across the Coalition. "Impossible," muttered Chief Engineer Rodriguez, the human officer who'd been assigned to escort them. "You're telling me modern ships still use particle-based quantum cores? We abandoned that technology before the war even started." Zena extended a sensory tentacle toward the Hyperion's central power column, a structure that seemed to fade in and out of reality. "Then what, exactly, are we looking at?" Rodriguez smiled, the expression somehow both proud and sympathetic. Wave-state quantum mechanics. The core doesn't generate energy so much as it conducts probability. The ship's AI constantly collapses quantum wave functions in the most efficient pattern possible, essentially harvesting energy from the multiverse itself. The junior researcher dropped his scanner. Zena couldn't blame him. But that's not even the interesting part. Rodriguez continued, leading them toward a curved wall covered in what looked like living metal. This is our neural interface system. It's how we communicate with the ship. Zena watched in fascination as Rodriguez placed his hand on the wall. The metal rippled like mercury, patterns of light racing along its surface. Through her specialized sensory organs, she detected something extraordinary. The human's brainwave patterns were synchronizing with the ship's quantum field. The entire crew is connected, Rodriguez explained, his eyes slightly unfocused as he accessed ship systems through the interface. We don't just pilot the Hyperion, we experience it. Every sensor reading, every system status, every course correction flows through our collective consciousness. The AI acts as a translator and coordinator, turning our intentions into actions at quantum speeds. That's why your combat performance was so extraordinary, Zena realized, her tentacles coiling with excitement. In the historical records of the Battle of Proxima, the Hyperion moved in ways that defied tactical analysis. You weren't operating the ship. We were the ship, Rodriguez confirmed. And that's just the basic neural tech. Wait until you see the adaptive hull system. He led them to an observation bay overlooking the Hyperion's outer skin. At his mental command, a section of the hull began to transform. Plates shifted and flowed like living tissue, forming new configurations with fluid grace. Programmable matter infused with quantum-entangled particles, he explained. The hull can reconfigure for any situation. Atmospheric entry, space combat, stealth operations, even limited self-repair. Those geometric patterns your sensors detected, they're not just for show. The hull can generate interference patterns that cancel out incoming energy weapons or deflect kinetic impacts. Zena's scientific detachment finally cracked. Why? She asked. Why did humanity surrender if you possessed this level of technology? Our historical records show your fleet was still largely intact. Rodriguez's expression grew serious. That's a question for the Admiral. But I'll tell you this. Sometimes the strongest choice is knowing when not to use your strength. Before Zena could respond, a ripple of activity passed through the neural interface wall. Rodriguez straightened, suddenly alert. If you'll excuse me, he said, already moving toward the exit. The Admiral's about to make an announcement that I believe will answer many of your questions, though perhaps not in ways you're expecting. Zena watched him leave, her tentacles waving thoughtfully in the quantum-charged air. In just a few hours of examination, she'd seen technology that rendered 3 centuries of coalition advancement obsolete. Yet something about Rodriguez's last statement nagged at her scientific instincts. The Hyperion wasn't just a technological marvel, it was a warning. And she had a growing suspicion that humanity's greatest achievement wasn't the ship's advanced systems, but rather their decision to hide them away. The Hyperion's main briefing room had never been designed to accommodate alien dignitaries. Yet here they were, the Coalition's High Chancellor Vextree, Dr. Zenaval, and a small group of senior officials, all watching as Admiral Chen activated the ship's memory core. The holographic display sprang to life, showing images that made even the most seasoned officials shift uncomfortably in their seats. 7 months ago, by our subjective time, Chen began, the Hyperion was conducting deep space trials of our new quantum fold drive. We were pushing the boundaries of what we thought possible, trying to find an advantage that would end the war. She manipulated the display, showing a region of space that seemed to twist in impossible ways. What we found instead was this. Dr. Val's tentacles writhed in agitation. That pattern, it's like a tear in space-time itself. Close. Chen nodded. We discovered that reality has pressure points, places where the fundamental forces of the universe intersect. With the right technology, These points can be manipulated. Reality itself becomes optional. The hologram shifted, showing a test probe approaching one such intersection. As they watched, the probe seemed to split into multiple versions of itself, each taking a different path through possibility. At first, we thought we'd discovered the ultimate weapon. Chen continued, her voice heavy with memory. Imagine being able to choose the most favorable outcome of any battle before it begins. To rewrite events until you achieve the perfect victory. The power to ensure that every quantum probability collapses in your favor. Chancellor Vextree's ceremonial robes rustled as he leaned forward. Why are you showing us this? Chen's expression remained carefully neutral. Because what we discovered next changed everything. She gestured, and the hologram displayed a complex mathematical model. These intersection points aren't random. They're part of a pattern, a vast underlying structure that maintains the stability of our universe. And they're deteriorating. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. It was Dr. Val who finally spoke, her scientific curiosity overcoming her shock. Deteriorating. Because of use. Every time someone manipulates these points, it weakens the fabric of reality, Chen confirmed. We found evidence that ancient civilizations had discovered and used this power before. Each time, they disappeared from existence, not because they were destroyed, but because they literally rewrote themselves out of reality trying to achieve perfection. She stood, pacing the length of the briefing room. We had a choice to make. We possessed technology that could end the war in days, but using it would start us down that same path. Even worse, once this knowledge became known, every species would race to develop similar capabilities. The intersection points would be used again and again, until reality itself would unravel. Vextree finished, his voice barely a whisper. Exactly. Chen turned back to face them. So we made a different choice. The Hyperion was already equipped with the most advanced temporal systems ever created. We used them to remove ourselves from the equation. Our disappearance was meant to be permanent, a small sacrifice to prevent a universal catastrophe. Dr. Val's tentacles coiled tightly. Then why return now? Because something has changed. Chen activated one final hologram, showing a pattern of disturbances spreading across the galaxy. These readings came from our long-range quantum sensors just before we were discovered. Something is systematically accessing these intersection points, weakening reality's structure. Whatever it is, it's using technology far more advanced than anything we developed. She faced the coalition representatives directly. We didn't choose this moment to return. We were awakened because the very thing we sacrificed ourselves to prevent is happening anyway. And if we don't find a way to stop it together, there won't be a reality left for any of us to fight over. Display Sector 793. Admiral Chen commanded. The Hyperion's quantum imaging system responded instantly, projecting a three-dimensional map of intergalactic space. Coalition scientists and military leaders watched in stunned silence as dark patterns emerged, like ink spreading through water. Dr. Val extended her sensory tentacles toward the hologram, trying to make sense of the readings. These disturbances, they're moving against the galaxy's rotation. Not just moving, Commander Rodriguez added, his neural link with the ship providing deeper insight. They're calculating. Each jump precisely targets another intersection point in spacetime. Through the neural interface, Chen felt the Hyperion's eye processing vast amounts of data, correlating movement patterns with historical records that span millennia. The ship's quantum sensors, capable of detecting ripples in reality itself, painted a picture that grew more disturbing with each passing moment. "Show them the temporal overlay," she ordered. The hologram shifted, now displaying thousands of years of astronomical data in compressed time. Points of light representing stars and civilizations flickered and died in distinct patterns, creating a wave of darkness that moved methodically across space and time. High Chancellor Vextree's composure finally cracked. By the first light, it's happened before. Many times, Chen confirmed. We thought these were natural extinction events, the rise and fall of civilizations across cosmic time. But look at the pattern. The AI highlighted a series of paths through the galaxy, each ending in clusters of disappeared stellar civilizations. The paths converge, forming a spiral that pointed directly toward Coalition space. "Something is feeding," Dr. Val whispered, her scientific detachment giving way to primal fear. "These aren't random events. Something is systematically consuming the quantum potential of entire civilizations." Rodriguez nodded grimly. "We've detected 13 distinct entities, moving in formation through the void between galaxies. Their technology operates on principles we barely understand. But one thing is clear. They're manipulating the same intersection points we discovered, but on a scale we never imagined possible." The hologram zoomed in on the nearest entity, a mass of twisted space-time that seemed to devour light itself. The Hyperion's sensors struggled to maintain focus, as if reality itself rejected what they were seeing. "How long?" Vextree demanded. Chen's expression remained carefully controlled, but those connected to the ship's neural network could feel her concern bleeding through. "At their current velocity, they'll reach the outer rim of Coalition space in 3 months. We've analyzed their pattern of consumption. They target civilizations that have achieved quantum technological development. The more advanced the civilization, the more attractive it becomes as prey. And the Coalition's quantum technology," Dr. Val began, "is like a beacon," Chen finished. "You've spent 3 centuries developing along exactly the paths they're drawn to. The neural interface is showing us probability calculations now. Without intervention, the Coalition has a 97% chance of complete quantum dissolution within 1 standard year." The room erupted in panicked discussions, but Chen held up her hand for silence. Through the neural link, she could feel her crew's determination crystallizing into a shared purpose. "The Hyperion wasn't just built for war," she announced. "It was designed to understand and manipulate the quantum structure of reality itself. What we discovered forced us into hiding, but it also gave us 3 centuries to develop defenses against exactly this type of threat." She stepped forward, her uniform gleaming under the holographic lights. "We need to reactivate the other prototype ships we hid throughout the galaxy. We need to upgrade the Coalition's fleet with our quantum shielding technology. And most importantly, we need to do it without drawing attention, because the moment these entities realize we can detect them." As if in answer, the hologram flared with new data. One of the dark entities had changed course, its trajectory now bearing directly toward their position. The hunt had begun. The Coalition Emergency Council chamber had never felt smaller. Admiral Chen stood at its center, her crisp uniform a stark contrast to the ornate robes of the gathered representatives. Above them, a real-time hologram showed the dark entity's approach, a void in space that consumed light and hope with equal measure. "You're asking us to trust you," General Mordath of the Crack stated, his cybernetic eye whirring as it analyzed Chen's expression. "The same humans who merely brought the Coalition to its knees, who possess technology beyond our comprehension, who disappeared for 3 centuries, only to return with tales of cosmic horror." Chen's response was measured, but firm. "I'm asking you to survive. The Hyperion's quantum sensors don't lie. That thing out there is coming for all of us. And it's just the scout." High Chancellor Vextree raised his hand for silence as murmurs rippled through the chamber. "Admiral Chen proposes sharing the Hyperion's defensive technologies with our fleet, but the price she demands is non-negotiable," Chen finished. "The complete emancipation of all human worlds, an end to the technological restrictions, the restoration of humanity's right to self-determination." Dr. Val's tentacles waved in agitation. "The original restrictions were put in place because we feared human advancement. Now you're telling us that advancement is our only hope of survival." Through her neural link, Shen felt the Hyperion's eye calculating probabilities, showing her countless possible futures. In most of them, the galaxy died in fire and quantum dissolution, but in a few barely visible threads of possibility. "We're not the same civilization you fought 3 centuries ago," Chen said, projecting tactical data through the chamber's holographic systems. "Look at the Hyperion's logs. We had weapons that could have won the war in days, technology that could have rewritten reality itself. We chose to hide it away, not because we were defeated, but because we understood the price of using it." The hologram shifted, showing the locations of other hidden human vessels. There are 12 more ships like the Hyperion, each carrying specialized quantum technology. We can reactivate them, upgrade your fleets, and establish a defensive line before the main force arrives. But it has to be a true alliance. We won't trade one form of extinction for another. Ambassador Lyanna stood, her bioluminescent patterns expressing deep thought. 3 centuries ago, humanity chose surrender over mutual destruction. They've proven they can be trusted with power. Perhaps it's time we proved we can be trusted with forgiveness. "Pretty words," Mordath growled, "but the fact remains, if we accept this deal, we're putting the fate of the coalition in human hands." Again, Chen's patience finally broke. She interfaced directly with the chamber systems, projecting the raw sensor data from the Hyperion's quantum arrays. The representatives recoiled as they saw reality itself bending around the approaching entity, probability waves collapsing in its wake. "Look at it," she demanded. "Really look. It's not just coming for humans or the coalition. It's coming for all sentient life that's achieved quantum awareness. We can stand together, or we can die separately. Those are our only options." The chamber fell silent. Through the neural link, Chen felt Commander Rodriguez preparing the Hyperion systems for immediate departure. If the coalition refused, they'd have to implement their backup plan. A desperate gambit involving temporal mechanics and a one-way trip into the void. Chancellor Vextree rose slowly, his ancient eyes fixed on the approaching darkness. 3 centuries ago, we claimed victory when humanity surrendered. Perhaps, he paused, weighing 300 years of history against an uncertain future. Perhaps it's time we admitted that their surrender was actually their greatest triumph. They saw a truth we're only now beginning to understand. He turned to face the assembly. "I move to accept Admiral Chen's terms. We need humanity's help. More importantly, we need their wisdom. The question is, after 3 centuries of oppression, are they still willing to save us?" Chen felt the weight of history in that moment. Through the neural link, she sensed her crew's readiness, their determination. The darkness was coming, but this time, humanity wouldn't face it alone. Through the Hyperion's quantum-enhanced viewport, Admiral Chen watched as the first coalition vessel underwent its transformation. Streams of programmable matter flowed across its hull, guided by human engineers working in perfect synchronization with their alien counterparts. The neural interface hummed with data as the ship's AI coordinated the complex upgrade process. "Beautiful, isn't it?" Dr. Val floated beside her, tentacles swaying in the zero-gravity observation dome. "In 3 centuries of studying human artifacts, I never imagined I'd see anything like this." Chen nodded, feeling the resonance of countless quantum possibilities converging. "The upgrades are taking hold faster than we anticipated. Your engineers learn quickly." "We had good teachers," Val responded, her tentacles forming patterns of respect. "Though I suspect teaching us to use your technology wasn't the hardest part." Through the neural link, Chen received updates from the other 11 human ships they'd reactivated. Each vessel, hidden in temporal stasis like the Hyperion, now served as a transformation center, upgrading coalition ships with quantum-resistant technology. But more importantly, each ship hosted mixed crews of humans and aliens, learning to work together against the approaching darkness. "Admiral." Commander Rodriguez's voice came through the neural link. "You need to see this." The holographic display shifted, showing a detailed analysis of the Coalition's historical archives. "We've been comparing our combat logs from the war with the Coalition's records," Rodriguez explained, appearing beside them. "There's something that doesn't add up." Chen felt her throat tighten. "Show them." The display split, showing parallel timelines of the war's final days. According to our records, Rodriguez continued, the Hyperion alone had enough firepower to destroy 3 coalition fleets. But in every major engagement, our damage outputs were precisely calculated to disable rather than destroy. Dr. Val's tentacles coiled in surprise. You were pulling your punches, even when we were pushing you back to Earth. The entire human fleet was. Chen confirmed quietly. Every shot was designed to demonstrate our capability without causing maximum damage. Every retreat was calculated to preserve life on both sides. We didn't lose the war, Dr. Val. We chose to end it before it forced us to reveal technology that neither side was ready to handle responsibly. The viewport flickered as another coalition ship completed its transformation. Through the neural interface, Chen felt the familiar patterns of quantum shielding coming online, creating a protective lattice of probability fields around the vessel. And now? Val asked, her scientific curiosity warring with apprehension. Now we face something that requires not just advanced technology, but the wisdom to use it properly. Chen turned to face the Centaurian scientist. That's why we insisted on mixed crews. The quantum shields aren't just technology. They're a manifestation of shared consciousness, shared purpose. They only work when different species learn to think as one. A priority alert pulsed through the neural network. The dark entity had crossed another threshold, its wake of collapse possibilities growing stronger. They had less than a week before it arrived. Look there, Chen pointed through the viewport, where hundreds of upgraded ships now moved in perfect formation, their quantum shields resonating in harmony. Human tactical officers worked alongside Crack's gunners. Centauri navigators merged their consciousness with coalition helmsmen through shared neural interfaces. Even General Mordath had volunteered his battle group for the first wave of upgrades. 3 centuries ago, we faced a choice between victory and wisdom, Chen said softly. We chose wisdom, believing that someday the galaxy would need more than just powerful weapons. It would need species who understood the responsibility that came with wielding them. Dr. Val's tentacles formed complex patterns of realization. You didn't just preserve your technology. You preserved hope. Hope, Chen agreed, watching another coalition ship emerge from its quantum transformation, and the chance to prove that former enemies could become something greater than either could be alone. Through the neural interface, she felt the combined consciousness of human and alien crews preparing for the battle ahead. The darkness was coming, but this time, they would face it together, not as conquerors or conquered, but as guardians of a reality worth preserving.